Today we're talking all things faux flower bouquets, and today we're going to be making a wildflower inspired faux floral bouquet with faux artificial daisies and this really pretty whimsical greenery that really adds to that wildflower design. So can't wait to share more about our faux flower design with you today. So let's dive right in. It's a very chilly day today, but I'm in the studio. I'm excited to share with you a really cool way and a very cost-effective, simple faux flower DIY wildflower inspired bouquet. So let's get started with the supplies you'll need first, and then we'll deep dive into the design. So as always, you're going to want a really good floral tape, and we'll talk about how to use this as we progress with the design. This is a waterproof tape that will really help to hold your stems together once you're finished designing. The other pieces you'll want are, ideally, especially for faux flowers, you will want either a really good shear scissors that you know can, if you need to, cut through like the plastic and the wire, or ideally even wire cutters work really well for faux stems because typically inside that plastic is going to be like a wire part of the stem. Now, if you like the length of the stem as it is, you can always just use the stem length and keep it even and you won't have to cut anything, but know that you may want to, and so that would be an additional kind of tool that you may want to have in your arsenal as you're preparing. The final piece would be, if you wanted to, and I would recommend it, would be to have some type of ribbon to wrap, and again, we'll talk more about that, but to wrap around your bouquet when you're done designing to hide that tape or mechanics from it. So okay, now let's get started on the design. So I've talked about this in past videos, but what I love to consider for, especially if it's a more symmetrical shape like this bouquet that we're doing, you are going to want to think about designing in groups of 3, sometimes, or multiples of 3. Sometimes I do 3, and then if I feel like there needs to be fullness somewhere, like I'll add in like a single stem or something. But particularly for your focal flower, which in this case today are these really sweet daisy stem picks. For this, I am going in and doing a quantity of 3 of these. This is going to be a small to medium size, a nice little wildflower bouquet. And the reason why I am doing 3 is because, just like I'm holding these up for you, it is ideal for making that kind of triangular, symmetrical, but also more natural looking shape. This is a design theory in general, in art and aesthetically, that is really appealing visually. And so that's kind of that look that I want to start with for that base. Now, to prep these flowers, if there are any tags on them from the store, you're going to obviously want to remove those. In order to get the fullest looking bouquet you can, I also recommend actually taking each stem and separating it out from the others. And you can just there's no rhyme or reason to this. You're just wanting to give a little bit of space between the stems. This is because this style, very wildflower style, looks best when it's not when the stems are not super clumped together. So I'm going to do this for each of these floral picks of flowers. And each flower pick, which is like this piece, has 6 blooms on it, which is really nice. And so if you're wanting to minimize, effort in your floral design, if you wanted to find, picks like this where there are multiple stems on them, it makes it super easy. Or incorporating these, even if it wasn't as a filler flower, let's say you got really nice big full faux artificial rose stems and they were just a single stem, you could certainly add, 3 to 6 of those and then add these as like an accent flower. But for today, these are actually going to really be the focal flower in the arrangement. We're just going to have these. And this is the last one, and then I'll show you the other stem we're using for this super simple, super sweet wildflower inspired bouquet. So that looks really pretty. So putting those over here. Now, the other stem we have is this really pretty artificial greenery with a little bit of a white hint at the tip of it. It's almost like a seeded eucalyptus almost look to the stems. And again, you're going to just want to separate out those stems from each other. On the pick itself, give them some room to breathe and to be really airy and flowy, because that is quintessential wildflower bouquet. And then we're going to do a few more. Now, I went ahead and I got 4 of these stems because, like I said, I like multiples of 3, and then sometimes, just as a pro tip, I know myself well enough, that as I'm designing, I get that kind of symmetrical shape using that triangular method of just looking at it. I sometimes find that I want just like an additional stem, sometimes two. So when you're planning your floral recipe, you want to ensure that you do have a couple extra stems just in case you might need them. That's with anything, whether it's fresh or faux flowers. I can't recommend that enough to have extra stems. And if you're not sure what a flower recipe is, I actually do have another video on that, talking about how to basically calculate the ingredients for your arrangements. And so in this case, we have 7 stems total. I have 3 of the focal flower daisy, and then I have 4 of these really pretty green and white kind of wildflower accent stems. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with that base of the greenery. And again, you would actually do this whether it was a faux or fresh arrangement with that base. I'm kind of coming in here. See, I really like the way that's looking, but I feel like I need, again, just one more. I knew this would work out well. Just one over. See how that's like a perfectly symmetrical kind of circle. That's what we're going for. So I'm placing these in, and as you design, it's important. I'm actually using this camera to talk to you today as my mirror. I'm looking into this to see how I like the design and the symmetry of it. If you are at home, the best way that I can recommend doing this is actually go in front of a mirror. I can't tell you how many very famous floral designers actually do this also in their studio or their home, if they have a home studio, and they have a mirror and they're able to look and adjust their design based on looking in the mirror and basically assessing, is it symmetrical enough? Where do I want to see different shapes? So absolutely, a mirror is your best friend when designing. So I'm actually going around because today I'm going to show you what it would look like to really keep those stems all at a similar length so you don't have to cut them, though you could. If you liked the way certain ones were elevated or not, you certainly could have them lower and higher. And in that case, would need to cut again with wire cutters or otherwise. But for today, I'm going to try to keep these pretty similar in height so we don't have to do any cutting today with the stem below. The other reason you might need to, though, cut would be, for example, here, as I'm bringing in these daisies and trying to make that kind of triangular shape. What you want to do, what I would recommend that looks really pretty, is to actually have some of your flowers, so especially like in this case, the focal flower, actually be just slightly elevated from that greenery. You see how the greenery is kind of in this general space, more or less, and then the daisies are like a little bit higher than that. That is exactly what you want in order to, and see here I'm kind of going in and I made that triangle essentially. You wouldn't know it, but I have one here, here, and here, so we're like creating a triangle, and I need to move this a little bit. But basically what you're doing there is you are giving dimension to the flower. If they are a little bit high, if the focal is a little bit higher than kind of this filler, so you have some high, you have some low, visually that is also super appealing. Again, I'm looking in the mirror and I am kind of assessing. I feel like I have a line of 3 here that was unintentional. So I'm just going in and adjusting. Sometimes one other tip with these floral picks, often a certain flower like this one, they'll have one that's like a little taller than the other. So I actually do try to put this in towards the center of the bouquet, because that's how we'd actually want the shape of the bouquet to be anyway, right? We'd want a little bit of a taller piece and then cascading kind of down naturally. And so even that just helped. I kind of shifted it around. I'm gonna then kind of go ahead and give more space to those. And see here, we're starting to get that shape. So again, I have a floral pick here, here, and down here. So we have that kind of triangular vibe going. And then once I like how, generally that is in front of the camera, it does not have to be perfect, or the mirror in your case. I'm then going to go in and just make sure that it looks really pretty on the sides. And what I do there is actually pull down some of this greenery so that from any angle, like here, I feel like I want a little bit more of a daisy moment. From any angle, we could see a daisy here. Let's do that here. There we go. So I'm actually going to pull this daisy over. Oh, I like how this is come together. Oh, it's so sweet. I really like that. So just giving some fullness And then on the sides, making sure, you know, you can kind of see a daisy on all sides. Again, here, maybe I'm going to do a little bit more, maybe pull one of these down a little bit so you get a daisy moment. So just making sure that on all sides from top to side angle, you have a pretty moment with your focal flowers. You can see here, it's not perfect. I purposely do not make this so symmetrical that it's obvious that I have a flower like in every spot. I do have some, as they say in the art and design world, some negative space, right? So like here, we would call maybe some negative space right in here. That's not a bad thing for a wildflower bouquet. And if you are doing this on your own, you need to know that that's okay. And that actually is kind of where the magic is made, I think. Particularly right now and for future trends in wedding floral design, that will be a big thing. So it does not need to be perfect. It is, unless you like that style of perfect symmetry. Really where I think the magic comes from making it look more natural is to have some of that negative space, to not have it be so perfectly symmetrical, which actually works out really well for DIY brides. Or if you're starting your floral business and just trying to learn how to do this style. So here she is. I think she's really sweet and pretty. Now we're ready to, and by the way, a decent size. Now we're ready to tie the bouquet. And like I said, we're more or less these, it's like got a natural kind of look to the stems. So while you could maybe cut a few, I actually think this is okay. Let me tie it off and see if we want to cut any stems to make it look a little bit more put together. So you're going to take your tape. At this point, you've been holding the bouquet for a while in your hand, left or right, whichever you are. I typically hold it in my non-dominant hand and then am using my dominant hand, which is my right hand, to add the flowers to it. Do whatever feels most comfortable to you, although your hand will start to get tired, especially if you're not used to this. So, you know, keep that in mind. You absolutely can go in sections. So like if you get tired and your hand gets tired, wrap what you have at that moment and set it down for a bit if you need to. You can always take the tape off, cut it, and restart. There is no wrong way to do this. But now I have taped the bouquet and I can kind of get a sense of like where the stems are. I am going to actually pull a few a little bit down and like make them a little bit more even, which again, if you're watching me doing this here, you actually can do that even with the tape in it if you tape it, you know, not super duper duper tight. So I think that looks pretty natural actually, like the stem base. I'm okay with that. If you wanted to make it super even on the bottom, you certainly could cut like just a teeny tiny bit off and that would also be okay. Now let's talk about wrapping this with your choice of ribbons. So I have shears, scissors just for ribbon, cutting ribbon and fabric. They work really well. I would highly recommend this just so you don't have issues when you're cutting. If you don't have really good scissors, sometimes the ribbon can get torn and doesn't look great. Here I just have a really pretty white chiffon ribbon that I use for a lot of things. I'm just going to cut a little bit off for this to show you how you don't really need a lot, especially with a smaller bouquet like this, to hide the mechanics. But what I mean by mechanics is how we created the flowers, and that's that little green tape piece. And so you can just basically go behind the bouquet, wrap that green tape, make a little knot. And then I think that's fine. You could wrap this around again. I have enough to kind of wrap it around again with one more little knot. And I think even doing like multiple little knots, like wrapping, knot, wrapping, and then making a knot, it looks really cute. So that's a very simple way to wrap your bouquet. Remember, if you are doing this for your own wedding, a really important piece to consider just in general when making and using your bouquet is that you actually want to stand with your bouquet kind of at your belly button and out, because that is way better for photos. If you see here, like different ways, it doesn't look bad, but if you really want to get that wow factor, have it at your belly button and out so that you can really model it for your people. So anyway, that is our wildflower faux flower bouquet tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'm happy to share more. But thank you for joining us. We're going to be doing a whole bunch in our wedding floral series in particular about all your other DIY floral needs. So thanks for being here, and we'll see you at the next video.